Okay, firstly, let's see if I can share my screen.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, yes, we can.
Sharing, yeah. Okay, so these are just my notes that I'm going to be going through here. So Trello is quite a nice bit of online software that you can get an account for and use. So I'm just assuming I'm talking to someone who's maybe never used it before. And I think it's mainly considered to be collaboration software, although you can use it on your own. And as you'll see, the flexibility of Trello in some ways is it's a bit of a hindrance, but we'll look at that. So I think it's just very well suited to working in a team. So if you've got a team of people, sort of collaborative work like that. And so it's also very suitable for remote working because it's online. Yeah. So you can do so many things. You can do things like organize your kids' art with it, or you could organize your holiday with it, or you could professionally, you could manage your team with it. So I'm just going to show you an example. So this is an example I'm going to work through, but when you have a free account, you get 10 what they call boards. Okay, so for a board, think of it as, you know, the old boards that you'd hang in on the wall with cork on it, and you would like pin jobs on it. If you think like that, that's kind of a good place to start. So let's say, so I've got 10 boards I'm allowed to have, and I want to start a new one. So you'd go here and we'd go create a board, and I'm going to do my holiday planning here. Okay, so we've started a new board, and so what are the things you might need for your holiday? So the way Trello works, after you've got your board, so that's your kind of workspace, you've got lists. Okay, so let's say we're going to make a list for travel and accommodation. So we say add a list. Then there might be things you need to do with home. But let's say here, with travel and accommodation, you might look at various options. So this is planning. You know, you might want to take the Eurotunnel, and we say, so what have I done here? I've added a card. Okay, so a card is a thing that lives in a list. So we've got lists that live in a board, and then we've got cards. So I'm adding various options that I'm going to explore and research. So there might be flights, etc., ferry, you know, all that kind of thing. At home, things I might have to remind myself about, like who's going to feed the cat while I'm away, you know, that type of thing. There might be a list that you need in terms of what you're going to research, what you're going to do when you're on holiday, activities. So we add a list, and then, you know, Eiffel Tower, going to visit the Eiffel Tower, add a card. So all of these, see that the pattern we got here is a board is a space that we're going to work in. Then we've got these lists where we can organize our topics. And then we've got subjects that you see is very easy to add. Once you've say decided, no, we're going to go with a flight, we're not going to use Eurotunnel. You don't want Eurotunnel sort of cluttering up that particular list, so you can just put it into done. Okay, so everything that you sort of remind yourself to work on something when you've kind of completed it, you put it into the done thing. So this is an example, and it's just taken me a couple of minutes to set up something like that. And people do have lots of these type of things. You can just use it for your private thing. In this case, it's a holiday. You might be doing it with your friend. They might have ideas, so they would see exactly the same thing when you make a team. So if you make a team with you and your friend, they'd see exactly what you're doing. they can add to it. These cards have spaces here where you can add notes. I'll go more into that. So, like I said, one of the challenges with Trello is its flexibility. It's applicable to so many different scenarios. And so in terms of now thinking of it as managing a team, which is how I've been using it, I think, quite effectively in my core facility, you need to clarify, you know, what your needs are and how it fits with your kind of workflow. So let's just look at that. So my core facility gets data from the sequencing facility, and that's called the Genomic Technologies Core Facility. And we've got one person, a computer officer, who accepts the data in quite a raw form, and it needs processing, it needs putting into our system. So that's their task, is to do that. Once they've done that, they hand the processed data to me, and then I need to assign the jobs to different members of staff. Those members of staff then have a job to do, and when that job is complete, they need to sign it off. And for a core facility, this is very important because in research, it's kind of never ending. You know, there's always more you can do. So from a core facility perspective, ending a job is really important. Ending it in a way that the user is actually happy with, but also that it's within certain boundaries of time, because we have to be cost effective. And there's also some cases where the job needs timing, because for costing reasons, we have to cost it per hour. You know. So what I've done here is made a copy kind of my particular Trello board. This is taken, we're sort of refining it as we go. And I've kind of anonymized a lot of the things here. The only name that makes that as any reality is this one here. That's me. Okay, so this board here, this list, sorry. So this board is my jobs list, and it belongs to the team. Well, it belongs to me. I made it, but they've shared it with the team. So the whole team will log in and see exactly this. Yeah. And anyone can grab a card and move it around. Now the incoming list tends to be where the computer officer who receives the data, the raw data, tends to work, and he or she also puts the notes that he receives about the run. Okay, so I need to explain that. So we have the sequencing facility has different instruments, and in some cases we have a very cost-effective one which produces multiple projects. So we could have, say, 8 projects on the same run. You know, so we have this one-to-many situation. Then we have other cases where each run tends to be of an individual, and in fact, individual project, and that project might actually have multiple runs on it. So we've got this one-to-many, many-to-one kind of complication at this point. So to manage this, we have this kind of assignment list. Yeah, so the job gets processed, our computer officer. Once that's done, and that might hold several jobs, as I said, analysis jobs, it gets handed off into here, waiting assignment. And I might need to research before I actually assign the job to my colleagues, which could be here, which have their own lists. So I might need to contact the end user, the one who wants to use us, and say, you know, is this related to a previous job, all that type of thing. So once I've clarified that, I then assign the jobs to the various users here. Yeah, sorry, the various members of my staff. and then they go ahead and do the job. Now, as you see, I've got all these labels on it. So let's just investigate what you can do now with a card. So remember, these things that I can move around are cards. So let's have a look at this one. Actually, that one's a bit confusing because I've got various other jobs on there. So let's look at this one. So this thing of labels is quite useful just visually to be able to see what type of analysis task it is. And so our team has a whole long list of the various types of jobs that we do. Yeah, but they're all just belong to a card and we can just color code them. Yeah. As well, we have a lot of jobs that need to go into a holding pattern because we've asked a question of the end user and they haven't got back to us yet. So we have another flag for that. Now, why that's useful is when I'm assigning jobs, I can look at my colleagues and see, oh, okay, they actually got 3 jobs on the go, but all of them are on a holding pattern because they're waiting for the user to come back to them. So I can give them another job and not be too concerned that I'm overwhelming them. So having that sort of color code is quite easy for me to have just a quick assessment of, yeah, how busy are people, and that sort of thing. Yeah. So once the job is completed, remember I said in a core facility, it's very important that you can sign off a job so you can move on to something else. You just drag it over to the done list. And so I can tell from Tony that Tony's now got quite an empty list. I can quite happily give him new jobs. Of course, the end user might come back after a month and say, oh, hang on, one of those samples was Duff. Can you redo the analysis where we remove that sample? Then Tony can go looking through the done list and drag it back here and put a label on it saying, yeah, it's a follow-up request. And then I know why that job has come back into his working list. Yeah. So I think I've covered most of the things. There's other little details that a very important concept here with Trello is it also interacts with other bits of software. Now, there are limitations when you've got a free account. And so I've asked the university, and I would really love it if we had an institutional account for Trello, because there's a lot of what they call power-ups that you can add on that. So one of them, sorry, let's just go with this one, is a timer. So I use again, a freebie online timer called Toggle, and you install that on your internet browser. So in this case, I'm using Chrome. And then there's instructions for how to do that. Now, automatically on all my cards, a timer comes up that belongs to Toggle. Yeah, so our bioinformaticians, if they need to time a job, they can just start and stop the timer from Trello. There's other things like you can add file attachments, you can add these notes as I've talked about, you can put due date, you can make checklists for yourself. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff. These are kind of little details that come in handy, and different members of my team use them extensively or not. You can send alerts with, there's a bit of software called if this, then that. So you could send emails to yourself. If Leo, the manager, drops a card in your list, you can get an email saying something's been added to your list. And as you can see, it's quite easy to use, and it's fun to use. I think that's the thing, right? So we've had quite good kind of buy-in from my team. There's actually one user who doesn't use it as effectively as all the others, but there's 6 in my team, and 5 of us really like it, really use it, keep their lists up to date. And I'm finding it a very good way as a manager to kind of have this place where I have an overview of what's going on. Everyone else on my team can look at it and see immediately where they are. So it's all their to-do lists in a way, or they can add lists themselves, add cards. If there's a job that didn't come through me, that they want to do. They want to upgrade their computer or something, they can just add a card here. So it's quite, there's not, that's one of the things with Trello, it's flexible and there's not many rules here. It's not like I can say, oh, that card can only move if Leo approves. You know, that there are software that do that kind of thing, but Trello's not like that. Everybody who's on the team can just pull things around and change them. Okay, I think that's it really. That's what I want to show you. So I don't know, Matt, do you want to move on to the next talk, or is there time for questions, or do you want to do them at the end?
We've got time for some questions. 5 to 10 minutes for questions. So does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Leo?
Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, Leo. Thanks very much. That was really a really interesting and useful talk. I've been familiar with Trello for some time now, but haven't really used it very much. And it sounds like it's a useful tool, even at the free version. Typically within our team, so within the software team, we use a product called Jira, which works in a kind of a similar way. So it seems to me like Trello is like a Kanban board type of approach. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts about why we might use Trello instead of Jira, for example. Do you think there are advantages of using one over the other?
So the little that I know about Jira is it's good for software because you can set rules. Am I right there? So you could say somebody, when this job is finished, it needs to get passed on to X. And then when that's done, they need to check back with me, and then it can be considered done. So you can put all that kind of structure into it. Mm-hmm. The disadvantage is that takes quite a bit of know-how, you know, whereas Trello is just, anyone can just grab anything and add it and move it and delete it. And yeah, so that's an advantage for take up for people of your team. I mean, in your case, if they're all software engineers, then probably there's not such a problem. But like I said, I've got a team of 6 bioinformaticians, and one of them doesn't really get on with this, you know. And these are people that are very handy and skilled with software, but still, so I think you need really enthusiastic people that your team has to stay enthusiastic with the Trello board, and it needs to be fun to use. And I think the more rules and structure you have, maybe the less fun. That's the only thing I could say. But I think it does really depend on your needs and what kind of flow of data you're trying to track. So, you know.
Yeah, I think that's really useful. Thanks, Leo. I wear 2 hats. So I sit in the software team, but I'm also a project manager. And I guess I'm actually thinking of Trello as a project management tool to manage multiple projects. And I think if you think of a board like a project, for example, then I can see how Trello could be particularly useful. So that's really helpful. Thank you very much, Leo.
I thought Jira, the company that owns Jira is called Alsatian, and they have both Trello. So if you have access to Jira, you should, I think, have access to Trello by one way or another. We have licenses in university. I don't know exactly how they're dished out or where you can participate in that so that you can get a professional or upgraded. I'm a big fan of task management software. I used to use Asana, which is basically 10 years ago. I find actually university has loads and loads of people who use Asana for task management and organizing their groups, which is very similar to Trello, basically more. I actually came across Asana because apparently it's the preferred choice in Silicon Valley. So I thought it's good for Silicon Valley. And if you use Teams, you notice that we're having this meeting on Zoom. Asana and Trello are basically part of the apps that you can use with Teams. So you can like have multiple, integrations within that.
Yeah, so I don't know if someone could let me know about that. I mean, if there is a way that we can actually get an official license, that would be good, because we're sort of limited in how our use of the sort of third-party software plugging into Trello, and some of that might be handy for us.
Yeah, it's worth asking the question. Well, I'll be talking a little bit about this in the RRP, but actually we're looking next year for something to do with software asset management. So basically we will know at some stage, and this is a project for next year, where we're looking like maybe to implement something around what software do we have at the university, how we can have access to it, so you don't have to buy like one section have, let's say, Jira and Trello, and maybe they have spare licenses they can like lend, or people can buy in, rather than they having to go, or like sharing mechanisms and understanding what people use, and have a more effective and purchasing power also. If you have multiple people wanting to buy something, the price usually drops. So so we don't seem to be able to do that yet. And this is one of the demands that came across when we asked a couple of years ago what people wanted in the research IT domain, and basically software asset management was one of these issues that came about.
Thanks very much. Richard, I think you've unmuted. You've got a question, and then Sophie, I know you want to ask a question. So Richard, do you want to go?
Yeah, just a quick one. So is there any facility for audit? So I guess I see it's really flexible and anyone can move anything about. But if you had a project where you needed to know what had happened to a thing in the past, so you'd said it was done, but something had gone wrong, is there a way to look back at logs and see who moved it where?
I think not without adding something to it. That I suspect there are sort of things you could add in that would track, but as it is, no. So so in that case, maybe you're talking about things like Jira would be very useful. Yeah,
Okay,
that's it. It's I think it's very, very strong on user-friendly, you know, unstructuredness, but on the other hand, trying to add structure is a challenge. So yeah.
Okay, let's go to Sophie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I love Trello. I use it for everything, and I mean everything. So yeah, we started using Trello at the beginning of lockdown as a way to we're a quite small team, so we literally all sat next to each other, and so this was our way of doing the talk across the desk scenario, but on Trello. And we use it across different teams. So we use it as a team of data analysts. But we also have a project manager who sits on our Trello board as well, so she can see where we're up to, but also our executive director, who she's a bit tech savvy, but not that much. So it needs to be as plain as possible so she can just look and go, right, that's where everyone's up to, but also technical enough so that we know what we're doing. And I agree with the free license is great, but we use the calendar Powerup so we can plan our projects for due dates and things like that, but other connections with it would be great. So if there is any ability of licensing in future, I would vote for that, because it's changed how we operate our team completely. And with regards to a sort of audit log, the only thing I have noticed in the free version is that each card underneath says what someone has done.
Right.
I can't recall if it's time stamped, but you do see like, you know, Sophie Jones has moved this card or something like that. It's not perfect. It's not like an exported audit log, but there's a tiny trail, but I don't know how long it's stored in there. So if you want something a bit long term, it might not be perfect, but I do know it shows immediate changes. But yeah, votes for Trello. We love it. And the fact that I've got, like you said, it's very user friendly. So the fact that I've got non-tech savvy people into it and tech savvy people into it is the dream.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks very much, Sophie, for that input. And thanks, Leo, for a very interesting talk. Does anyone have any further last-minute questions before we move on to our next? Okay.